Hi, I'm Tim, and welcome to Watches Tonight on Watchbox Studios.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Watch Insider. My name is Brian, and thank you for logging on.
Whoa, hey, happy Friday, and welcome back to the Trading Desk. My name is Joshua Thanos, and this is my partner.
What's going on, guys? Jason Main here.
The best watches that nobody buys. These are not dogs. They sell that way, but they have considerable merit. Tonight, I'm compelled to pull the veil on some of the world's worthy watches that have fallen by the wayside of the industry's recent resurgence. So these are the watches I would gladly buy myself for myself, and all of them are available to you now, new, without a wait, and often new with a discount. These are watches from Rolex, Lange, and Oryx. These are the best watches that nobody buys, part 2. There will be other installments. We need to talk about Chopard. We need to talk about Parmigiani. We're going to get to that in part 3. Tonight, let's start with a Lange Sohne, the Lange 1 and the Zeitwerk. Okay, Lange 1, the pillar of the brand, and the Zeitwerk, the most audacious, paradigm-redefining watch by this rather conservative Saxon manufacturer. One of the 3 pillars of the brand, and we'll get to what those 3 are. But I would say, realistically, why are these modern masterpieces on the list? I mean, you're questioning, given how good they are objectively. The Lange 1 and the Zeitwerk are universally regarded as some of the best enthusiast pieces. Almost everyone rates them, even if they're not fans of Lange, and they're arguably 2 of the 3 core Langes alongside the 3rd pillar, the datograph. So, this is why they're on the list, because they can be bought with discounts new out of Lange boutiques right now. I've heard 30% off out of Lange factory stores. That's a problem for the brand, a great opportunity for the buyer. But when you have to take 3/10 off a new watch that is a wonderful piece that everyone agrees is a fantastic watch and among the best in the industry, something's wrong. That's why these are on the list of the best watches nobody buys, because pre-owned they sell at a huge discount to new, and even new they sell at a huge discount to list. So make that a factor to your advantage when shopping for these watches. I endorse them, just don't pay list. So here's the thing. Lange marketing has been as weak as the products are strong, and these precious metal dress watches, unfortunately, aren't steel, AP, Patek, Rolex, and even Omega. Those have really been the core of the watch industry resurgence. We're not seeing a whole lot of precious metal dress watches moving like those things are. If it's steel, it's real hot right now. If it's not, it's pretty much got to be FP Journe or a boutique brand to get away with being dress and precious metal. So, moreover, no list of the most important watches of the last 30 years would be complete without a Lange 1. And I'm not sure that the interminably waitlisted Patek Aquanaut and steel ceramic Daytona even rate as a footnote among discussions of the most important watches of the last 3 decades. Yet those are hot and the Langes are not. I would say that the case of the Zeitwerk is even more shocking. After all, when FP Journe designs something like this, people fall over themselves to get on the wait list and otherwise debase themselves with desperate entreaties for an allotment sniveled in hastily acquired French from Monsieur Journe. But here's the thing. The transformative 2009 Zeitwerk recast expectations for Lange as a brand, as well as acting as a defining product launch that was just as important as the 1994 Lange 1 or the 1999 datograph. That's how important the Zeitwerk was. And even more impressive, the Big Z beat the crap out of Audemars Piguet, Greubel Forsey, the Harry Winston Opus 9, the Ulysse Nardin Moonstruck, MB&F, and Urwerk to take the Aiguille d'Or in 2009, the grand prize at the Oscars of watchmaking. So it's not just we, the enthusiasts, who love this thing. The industry has nodded and said, yes, this was an epic watch that defined its age. In 2009, the world was about the Zeitwerk. And in 2018, just under a decade later, you can get this watch for $20,000. Less than its new MSRP if you buy it pre-owned. That's a screaming deal. Make that a factor to your advantage when shopping. Everything I just said about the Lange 1 is true with the Zeitwerk, but again, for the market at the moment, it's too complicated, it's too dressy, it's too precious metal, and too Lange to command stupid premiums or wait lists. And the late Walter Lange, and this is kind of a postscript, was a reserved and austere character, a good business mind and a sincere man, but he was unable or unwilling to cultivate the same cult of personality that swirls around F.P. Journe, Richard Mille, and the like in the small market, small volume brand space. Even though Lange only makes about 5,000 watches a year, and very few of those are the Zeitwerk. for some reason, it just doesn't have the wind in its sails. Again, make that a factor to your advantage. So now, arguably, the iconic watch
amazing.
Of recent Journe. I think you could say that the Resonance and the Tourbillon are the pillars of the brand. But if you ask people what's the best known and most desirable Journe of the moment, I think most folks would name the same watch.
Chronometre Bleu.
That's right.
So here we have the infamous Chronometre Bleu, tantalum blue case, blue dial with a bright rose gold movement that I think plays amazingly well off the tantalum case. So this is FP Journe's 5711. It's their stainless steel Daytona. It's their 15202 Jumbo. This is the watch that everybody waits on lists to get. Retails for about $22,000, and they are selling pre-owned for well over that. And what's so remarkable about this watch is that, his, call it entry-level watch has garnered this type of attention. And, what I love is that it's actually his most difficult and expensive dial, I believe, to produce. And, the tantalum case is only for this watch. And I think, what he's done a really good job of is there's so much pent-up demand for using probably this material and this dial combination to produce other watches that he kept it only on this, and he still has kept it scarce. I want to say they're producing, 100 to 150 a year?
That's right, maybe 110 tops. And it's a gorgeous timepiece because of a choice that no one acknowledges. It's the cream coloration of the dial print in the hands that really makes this dial pop. The contrast between that and the translucent blue base is so dramatic that everything on this dial appears to be floating suspended in space. It's almost like a hologram, and it's hard to describe because the base of it is a almost black polished metal, and then the material itself is a translucent blue lacquer that's applied on top. That's a very nutshell version of how it's made. Believe me, there's a lot more nuance to it. I'm not giving anything away, but that's what you're actually looking at. Turn it all over, and the movement is just as intriguing because you have twin mainspring barrels connected by, well, apparently nothing to the beating, balance, and escapement. Journe runs the drivetrain of the caliber underneath the dial side of the watch, so you see this beautiful open barleycorn engraved channel. Rather than an actual drivetrain, you can see the escapement and you can see the power source, but you can't see the transmission mechanism. And look at the triple finishing. Côte de Genève across the bridges, the barleycorn or Grand Doge across the channel between the barrels and the balance, and then there's an even micro perlage beneath the balance itself. So even in detail, the Chronometre Bleu is impressive. And if you're wondering, can a watch that is not COSC certified legitimately bear the label Chronometre? Well, I've tested one and it ran between 1 and 2 seconds per day. So the answer is yeah.
We have a quick question from Hein Rising. If FP Journe makes so few watches, how does Watchbox have so many of them? So it's a good question. It's actually one that we get quite often. And honestly, it's because we're just very active in the FP Journe marketplace. We've been buying and amassing them for years now. We're probably one of the only players in the world that really supports the FP Journe market and is willing to stock the pieces. And, we've been putting them away. We've been releasing them slowly over time, particularly the special ones. And, as a result of that, we're probably one of the few, online sellers that really even have product. And, when you put it into perspective, when against a Patek or a Rolex or any of these other brands, it's not that many references or it's not that many watches. But, for FP Journe, you're right. I mean, we do have probably 80 to 90% of the available FP Journe markets watches that are available for sale. And, lots of consumers are keeping them, but many are selling them and trading them, and that's one of the best things about the brand and why it's important. The overall liquidity of a brand, being able to trade in and out of a piece, be able to sell it, be able to buy it, pre-owned, that's what creates consumer demand. Because as consumers are going online and they're doing their research, they want to see what a watch is worth afterwards. They want to see that they're putting their money into a product that they can trade out of if they want. And and what's happened is that FP Journe is one of the few niche brands that I think now does have a liquid market where you can trade in and out of the watches, which is actually a great thing for the brand. It means it's healthy. It means that the brand is healthy.
So, what are we buying, selling, and trading this week, Jay?
This week, going with the vintage kind of theme of the watch, I thought we would go with picks. We went into the vault, kind of found cool vintage watches for buy, sell, trade.
Some vintage watches?
Yeah, some of this stuff I think is a good look. The idea was like a good look back to a vintage piece that's popular now. Like the modern version is popular now. Mm-hmm. Let's go take a look at what's good for buy, sell, trade in the vintage aspect of it.
Okay, so a vintage
kind
buy,
of a
sell,
throwback.
trade.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, so what's our buy?
So the buy watch today, we'll pull up the graphic here, is the Mark II. So we made reference to that in the wrist shot of this Flightmaster, and we could pull up the large graphic of that as well.
Another ugly chrono.
So this case, I think, is underappreciated by people that aren't Speedmaster enthusiasts. The Mark II has that same case shape, but it's much more comfortable than a Flightmaster, and I think proportionally it works better. Traditional chronograph layout there, Speedmaster dial and inner bezel, very much like the Space Race type of watch. Just again, this is the 1450014 case model, and I've always kind of liked this watch. I think it's a cool throwback, great movement. Everybody goes back to Speedmaster vintages because of the movement. I think it's a cool piece, and at a value proposition for a buy, that watch can be had for $300 to $3,500.
Yeah,
completely ready to go and be worn.
Sure.
So you can go buy most Speedmasters in that price range, but if you wanted to get into a vintage piece, a lot of vintage Speedmasters are very expensive. So especially pieces this old in a traditional Speedmaster case, $10,000. So for $3,500, kind of a cool buy.
Okay, yeah. So this is a watch that underappreciated out there. You can get it. It's a good value for dollars. That's why it's our buy watch, the vintage Omega Flightmaster.
Definitely.
All right. So what's our sell watch, Jason?
So the sell watch, and again, we're going to go ahead and post that graphic inside the sell column, is our 3800.
Right.
Nautilus. Josh knows quite a bit about this watch. He's I think sold probably more of these than anybody in the office.
Probably. Yeah. On the small side, what is this? A 37 millimeter?
37. Yeah, I think it's 37 and a half. But I think this piece, it keeps graduating stronger and stronger as we see all of the Nautilus, especially getting almost unwieldy pricing. They just keep escalating, and then what happens is people look at alternatives, and first maybe they go to other brands or they go to other pieces, and then when you really decide, what, I do really want the Nautilus, I think 3800 is probably the next entry level price point, and people start to, especially guys that have smaller wrist, under 6 inches wrist, they start to look at, can I wear a 37? Is it truly a mid-size? Some guys pull it off. I don't think it's a mainstream size, but the watch is pretty decent, I would say, in current standards. I mean...
so it's a sell because any Nautilus right now is a sell watch. The values of these have jumped up across the board. Every Nautilus, it seems like it has some more than others. Obviously, 5711 leading the way. 5980s we talked about in the past. 5980 steels are going for $80,000. It's absurd. Not absurd, but it's crazy is what it is. That's what I mean. It's just crazy. The demand for these watches has jumped so high. So if you have an older Nautilus, that's gone up in value too. So that would be your sell watch because you're going to get fantastic value, especially if you bought this new.
Right.
Then you're
doing well. How long ago the 3800s were sold new, and if you bought that, back then they didn't sell well. So you're probably getting a discount on that piece.
Well, we've talked about this in the past in terms of vintage and what watches go up in value. It's watches that at the time were kind of undervalued. They didn't, Patek has always been known for making for dress watches. So when they made the Nautilus as somewhat of a sport watch, it didn't sell that well. They didn't make as many. It was on the cheaper side of their price point. So they didn't really get respected the way they do now. So now there's obviously more value. But that's a watch specifically. That's a sell watch because you're definitely getting a lot of value for that now.
Certainly.
All right, so trade watch is normally a watch that kind of has just been staying constant, hasn't gone up, hasn't gone down, and is easy watch to move, for like value into something else. So what are we doing?
Right. So trade watch, I went with the 16750. This is a watch that has gone up, so it doesn't necessarily meet the traditional trade value.
Okay.
But the reason why I picked this for trade, one, I wanted to showcase the piece in the show because I think it's super relevant right now in the market. Everybody's on the fence with all these Pepsi dials.
Sure.
And what better way than to go back to vintage and get the one that's the actual Pepsi that makes it relevant.
Sure. Which
I
reference
think
is this?
This is 16750.
Okay, 16750.
Yeah. So I think the reason I went with trade for this, even though it's on a rise and it's not like the very, very consistent aspect of trade,
Sure.
is that it's a piece that you
a lot
don't
of
need
demand,
to
right?
sell right now and you don't need to buy right now. You can keep it, and it's just going to keep going up, and it's always in demand. The discontinue kind of story that we said last week, we haven't heard if that's going to be true or not.
Oh, yeah.
But if it is, these are going to go up. If it's not, these are still going to go up. The steel piece came out, made the watch relevant again. The Tudor version made this watch relevant again. And even though the Pepsi was always relevant to collectors,
Sure.
now it's being more mainstream out there, and I'm sure we're going to see other brands start to do red and blue watches. So I think like this piece is just going to be a constant trend.